Hi Jeff and anyone else at KDOT who may be watching. I just put together a quick little video to show you how everything's going to work for the new gINT rule that calculates N60 here in your sample table. Hopefully most of this is pretty self-explanatory and straightforward, but just always good to have a little video to see how things work. So the calculated value will be stored here in the N60 field that's already in your database. It'll be triggered by a save. So when I save for this table, it'll do the calculations, but I won't do that just yet. And you can see down here is the field description. So when I click in that field, you'll see that description, and it lists the conditions that have to be met for the calculation to be done. So first off, the calculation is not disabled in the project table. I'll come back to that in a little bit. The sample type has to be SPT, and the sample length has to be greater than or equal to 1.5 feet. So that just means that there wasn't refusal and there's full penetration. The blows second and blows third have to be entered, and then there has to be a hammer correction factor. So if any of those conditions aren't met, then there won't be any calculation and nothing will show up in this field for that sample. So I'll go ahead and click save, triggers the gINT rule, and you see our calculated values right here. You can see that for this row, the value wasn't calculated. We don't have blows second, we don't have blows third, and also it's less than 0.4. So a couple different conditions weren't met. One implication of that is that I can write something in here. So I'll just write test, and I'll click save, and it doesn't clear that or overwrite that. It just kind of ignores that field if it can't do the calculation. I can change that if you want. For example, I can make it so that it clears whatever value is in there if it can't do the calculation, or I can keep it the way it is where you can type whatever you want into those values. But if I try to type it here where it can do the calculation, it's going to overwrite it with the actual N60. So it's just these rows where it can't be calculated. So let me know if you want me to change that. All right, so and then in the project table, we have this checkbox where we can say do not calc N60. It's a little bit different than I originally discussed with you, Jeff. Before, you're going to have to click it if you wanted to do the calculations. Now you're clicking it if you do not want it to do the calculations. And I'll show you why I made it that way. So if I go here to one of your legacy projects, yep, this is the one, where you didn't enter the blow counts before, you just entered in the N60 value. So we're worried about overwriting this value, but since there's no blow second, no blows third, there's no hammer correction factor, if you convert this to a new data template, those values are just going to be blank and the calculation is not going to happen. So that's one layer of safety from overwriting this field. It's just not going to do the calculation. And then when you can convert it, you can check off that box in the project table, and then it's extra safe that there's no accidental way. Those will be calculated and overwritten with the hand-entered values. What about the newer data template? So this looks just like the original example I had open, but it's not with the latest and greatest data template where I've applied the gINT rules. So the gINT rules are here in the table properties, and this is where you specify what gINT rule you're going to run. So the projects that you've already started aren't going to have the gINT rule specified for the sample table, and it's not going to do the calculations even if you have the new library with the gINT rule open. So like you can see here in this project, that GINT rule is specified. So if you want some of your existing projects to automatically calculate the values, you'd have to convert these to the newest data template with the GINT rule specified. And because in these projects you are going to have your blow count centered, you're going to have your sample lengths, you're going to have your correction factors. When you do that conversion, it will calculate the value. So, and it will be the same as what's calculated in your reports, and you're not entering any of these values by hand nowadays, so it's not really an issue. But I'll show you in a sec one way you could convert the projects without doing the calculation, just so you have all your bases covered. But anyway, first I'll just do that just so you see what I'm talking about. So utilities, convert projects. We'll go to this data template which sent you. It's just an updated data template with the GINT rule and the table properties. For convert files, I will select two. So I'll select this one, which is the old legacy project where N60 was hand calculated and entered. And then here's another one, which is more recent, where it's calculated in the report. I'll convert them both. Actually, let me close that one there because it's open. Okay, now they're converted. Go back to input. I'll open up the old legacy one first with the oldest data template, and you can see that there's no way that this is going to be calculated because all these fields are blank. And again, you can just come in here and just make for sure that, you know, if someone enters something in here, 99, it's still not going to do the calculation because that box is checked. So that's with the oldest data template. Now I'll open up the more recent one. Let's see. So when we did that conversion, it did calculate those N60s. Don't think it's going to be a problem. If for some reason it is, and you want to keep those blank, but just convert it to this new data template, again, probably rare, but you never know. So we'll do that. So I'm going to go new project, clone data template. So selected the same data template there, the newest one. I'll save it as a project here. So I'll call it import example because we're going to be importing the data into it. Okay, so now we have a new blank project, and I want to get those. Oh, can't go there. I want to get all the data into this project, the new data template, but without calculating the values. So first, I'll check this box. And now I'll do File, Import, Export, Import from Database, and then pause for a sec. I just need to get the original file, and then I'll resume this video. All right, so this GPJ here is the converted one. I want to go back to the other data template, so I'm going to just delete that if it will let me. All right, so that's deleted, and now I'm copying in here the original GPJ for that project. So this is without the GINT rules applied in that project, without N60 calculated. So I'll click Open. Now we're going to import the data from that. I'll just click OK. Okay. Now if I go to stage 3, okay, you can see the data came in without doing the N60 calculation because we checked this box before we imported the data. So probably rare that you're going to do that, but just in case, I don't know if you make other changes to your data template, want to update it, but don't want to calculate anything. I don't know. There could be a scenario. Let's see. One thing, so say this was a new project, and for some reason you'd accidentally clicked this box. You entered all your data in, and then you're like, oh shoot, the N60s aren't calculated because I clicked that box. If we go back here and unclick it, it's just not automatically going to do the calculations because remember it has to be a save that triggers the calculations. So you could come in here and just enter in a value somewhere in the table, click save, and then delete that value. So you're kind of tricking it into saving. But there's another option that's better because it'll do it for all the tables or all your boreholes at once. And you don't have to go through and do that all by hand. So if you go to GINT rules and then recalculate current table, it'll automatically run the calculations for you for all your boreholes. A lot faster that way. And the last thing I want to show you is in report design. So here's your templates. You have your N60 column. And then there's this user system data function to do the N60 calculation. And I updated this. So it's basically the same expression, except I inserted this first data function in there. And what that does is that it first looks to the sample table in that N60 count field. And if it has data, so that would be if it's automatically calculated by GINT rules, or if it's hand entered in the past, it's gonna plot that. But if it doesn't find any data there, it's empty, which it will be for some of those existing or your existing projects that you don't convert. It'll do the calculation still in the report. So it just gives you some backwards compatibility when creating your log reports. But otherwise, it's the same expression there to calculate N60 in the report. And again, that's stored in that user system data function. So that's about it. Any questions or anything you need differently, just let me know. And thank you.